wrestling fans, I'm Greg Hunter, and welcome to the announcer's booth. Now, you may notice that JJ's not with me, and that's because JJ is on vacation. He's in Florida with his family, and we hope that he's having a fine old time. We hope that he's having a lot of fun. We wanted to do something just a wee bit different. This is going to be a fairly short episode because basically I just wanted to give my reactions to WrestleMania. Now, to fess up, I don't really watch a lot of professional wrestling these days, or as the kids call it, sports entertainment. And the reason for that is because, aside from the fact that I just don't have time to watch the weekly product, I don't find it terribly engaging 90% of the time. Now, I have been curious with the build-up to some of the matches at WrestleMania, and I did watch the show of shows, or at least most of it, when I was able to get the WWE Network to work last night. And from what I watched, I will admit, I enjoyed, and it wasn't nearly as bad as I was expecting it to be, given some of the train wreck matches that were advertised. So, first things first, to fess up early, I didn't watch the kickoff show. I was at the gym. I didn't watch the first two matches. I missed the seven-way dance, at least I think it was a seven-way dance Intercontinental ladder match. I do know that they put over Zack Ryder, which strikes me as very interesting, and we'll see what they do with that, because I think it's inordinately interesting that they put in what is currently an NXT guy over for the Intercontinental title. So we'll come back to that later. I have a working theory. And then there was the Chris Jericho-AJ Styles match, which I have every intention of going back and rewatching, because frankly, that's the one match I really wanted to see on the whole card. So just to go over what I did see, and some of these I'll gloss over pretty quickly, but first things first, the New Day versus the League of Nations. Bottom line, it was a solid match. I did enjoy the match itself, and I think it was the right outcome. The League of Nations, who are being constantly compared to the Four Horsemen of Wrestling by JBL, and I would dearly love it if he would stop, because they're not the Four Horsemen. They shouldn't be portrayed as the Four Horsemen. They shouldn't be looked at as the Four Horsemen. They should be looked at as their own thing, and frankly, they should probably just shorten the name to The League, because the whole League of Nations, aside from my own knowledge as a history buff and knowing that the League of Nations was something that ultimately didn't work, we don't want the gimmick to follow history's own example. But I think this was the right outcome. I think pinning Xavier Woods was the right move, although Awesome Austin Creed and I have a history with each other, and I thoroughly loved watching my friend perform on the grandest stage of them all. It's a long, long way from hardcore hell in Cornelia, Georgia for NWA Anarchy, but I was very pleased to see that. That was probably my biggest highlight of the night, was watching my friend perform in front of 100,000 people in Dallas, Texas. But as far as the match itself goes, you need to build the League of Nations. You want them to be taken as a serious heel faction. The problem is you don't have a serious babyface faction for them to face. The crowd has long since turned the New Day babyface. You have finally just admitted it. The World Tag Team Champions are advertised as the New Day, all three members, but when you see the tag team titles defended, 99.9% of the time, it's Big E and Kofi Kingston. If you had beaten one of them, then I think it would have been the wrong outcome. Pinning what is essentially, in Xavier Woods, the mouthpiece of the New Day. You have a victory over the New Day, but you didn't really beat the champs. So it gives them an excuse to come out and brag, but at the same time, the fans know, and the perception will be, but they didn't beat Kofi or Big E, and that gives you something going forward. So I really think that was the smart move at WrestleMania, and they need to keep this this program going. I think properly booked, this will get them through SummerSlam at the very least, and it could go further. The only thing that I didn't necessarily care for was having the League of Nations right after their grandiose victory basically get punked out. Now, granted, it was Austin and Mick Foley and Shawn Michaels. So if you're going to get punked out by those three in Texas. That's the best outcome you could get. But I really do think that they should have not even picked up a microphone, and I think they should have been able to leave with their heads held high in victory, because I think that took a little bit of the steam off of it personally, but that's just me. But at least when they did come time to complete the beatdown, they did let the New Day get back involved, and they did make sure that the guy that was ultimately left laying was Wade Barrett, the least active member of the league. So there you go. The next thing we'll talk about is the women's world title, and I am so ecstatic to be able to call it the women's world title. I'm terrifically pleased that the WWE has ditched the Diva moniker, apparently entirely because they have referred to the three competitors in the match. They were referring to them as superstars, not divas. Not a distinction between a male and female superstar anymore, just superstar. I think that is amazing, and I think that speaks volumes to the talent of all of these young women, especially Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch. These three women, in my personal opinion, out of what I saw, now keeping in mind, like I said, I missed the kickoff show and I missed the opening two matches. But from what I watched of WrestleMania, so the 6-man on, they stole the show. They went, by my count, 20 minutes-ish. And while there were one or two things I saw in the match that were sloppy, they weren't sloppy unless someone told you they were. You would have to know what to look for. The most important thing, the biggest thing that I saw that I thought was sloppy in the match was on the Sunset Powerbomb attempt, when Becky has Charlotte set up for a German, and Sasha Banks comes in to do the Sunset, and the idea is to Sunset Powerbomb German. It's a known three-way dance spot. That was the sloppiest part because Sasha missed and wound up not getting her part, not getting the Sunset. But the girls covered it up beautifully. Becky went ahead and hit the German, and after the German is done, Sasha does the Sunset. So it looks like Sasha was simply taking advantage of Becky's positioning. And the one thing I want to call out here, I have never liked Michael Cole as an announcer, and I probably never will. Michael Cole, I think, probably exposed that it was a bad spot, that it was a blown spot at that point. But I want to give credit where it's due. JBL actually covered the spot. And that's one of the things, as a former announcer myself, I'm very big on. An announcer tries to hide mistakes as much as he can. And JBL did exactly that when he said Sasha took advantage of the German and tried to go for the pinfall. So kudos to JBL. Not that he needs it from me, but that was a hell of a job announcing and helping cover up a spot that got a little sideways there. The match itself, tremendous. I'm not convinced they put the right person over in Charlotte. I think if you were going to close the book on the Divas division, I think I would have wanted to start with a fresh champion. I think it was probably Sasha Banks' night to win it. So I really wish they had given it to her. But with that said, I think the match itself was beautiful. I think it was a tremendous contest. I think the fact that they gave all of them massive entrances, they gave as much pyro to Charlotte winning the women's title as they did to Roman Reigns winning the world title. Spoiler warning for later on. There was as much pyro. They put it on equal footing, which also speaks to the new women's title belt design. The fact that the new women's title belt is essentially a smaller version of the world title belt, I think is a tremendous idea. I do like the fact that it's on a different color leather. I don't like the fact that the background of the center plate is red. I don't like the WWE big logo design in general, but for what they're doing to make the women on equal par to the men, as far as these ladies can have a main event match, these ladies can go on and give us 20 minutes and so on, and to actually see them on a level playing field, I think it was a wise idea. If they wanted to have a red background to the center plate, I think I would have just put the belt on a red strap, but that's me. Kudos, though, for not putting it on pink, because that would have been what I would be scared they would do. So, enjoyed the match a great deal. The ladies stole the show. The Next match that I'll talk about here, realistically, let's see, I think we've got 3 main events, and we've got the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, and I'm going to go ahead and get the Andre the Giant Battle Royal out of the way. Don't know why Shaq was in the match. Okay. But at least he didn't go over, and at least he wasn't in it for long, so hey. I guess it was the only way they were going to get somebody physically taller than the Big Show in the match, so what the hey. They got rid of Big Show, they got rid of Kane, they got rid of Mark Henry. Those were the 3 favorites going in. If I were a betting man, I would have told you that Mark Henry was going to win it. But instead, very surprisingly to me, they put over Baron Corbin from NXT. Now, for the record, I'm not overly familiar with Baron Corbin's work. I haven't watched a lot of NXT either, but I definitely intend to, because I hear that that's probably the best wrestling going today. But the idea of putting another NXT guy over in at least what is presented as a very prestigious match, the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal with the big trophy and the presentation, I find it very interesting. By the time the night ends, you have 2 massive trophies being presented, in the case of the Andre the Giant Battle Royal and the Intercontinental title, to NXT stars. Because, like I said, remember, Zack Ryder is an NXT talent primarily. That's where he is considered. I think he's on their roster more than the WWE roster, and he's part of the Hype Bros in NXT. So I find that very, very interesting that that's something they did this night, especially given the outcome of one of our main events. Dean Ambrose, Brock Lesnar, the no-holds-barred street fight. The wrong guy won. I think if you were going to put somebody over here, it needed to be Dean Ambrose. I think he needed to win badly. You can have him show all the heart in the world. You can have him have that never say die attitude. You can have him do all of that. But if he doesn't eventually win the big one, and I don't mean win the world title, I just mean win a big match on a big stage against a big star. Because if you look at it, he lost the world title match to Triple H at not Fastlane, Roadblock. And frankly, probably should have. He lost in the Royal Rumble. I mean, if we look at his last several pay-per-view appearances, he was in the last 2 at the Royal Rumble, lost. He got eliminated by Triple H. He was in the triple threat match at Fastlane, lost. He was at Roadblock against Triple H for the world title, lost. Goes to WrestleMania against Brock Lesnar, lost. He's got to win one eventually. And putting Brock Lesnar in a weapons match environment gives you the perfect excuse to let him go under. You don't put any dings or dents in the luster or armor of the beast Brock Lesnar by having him lose to a dude with a baseball bat. Brock Lesnar's still the baddest man on the planet. He is still the most talented, brutal fighter in all of the WWE. But anybody's going to go down if you hit him in the head with a ball bat, or a chair, or stairs, or lots of chairs. I think that they missed the boat on this one. I sincerely think Dean Ambrose should have gone over. With that said, the match was relatively short, which I think it needed to be. It probably could have been a little shorter, but I think it was as short as WrestleMania would allow it to be. I think the match was suitably brutal. They didn't go at a breakneck pace, which you shouldn't in a match where there's a crap ton of weapons. You need to sell. That stuff needs to register, and I think they did that. So kudos on the execution of the match. The wrong guy won. Simple as that. Brock Lesnar didn't need the win. Dean did. The Hell in a Cell match for control of the company, or at least control of Monday Night Raw. I don't think anybody with 3 brain cells to rub together would have thought that The Undertaker was going to go over in Texas at WrestleMania. I don't think anyone would have thought that was going to happen. Undertaker went under once at WrestleMania. That was to Brock Lesnar. Again, I think the wrong guy won there too. But with that notwithstanding, The Undertaker in Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania in Texas against a non-wrestler. If they'd have put Shane McMahon over without a whole lot of shenanigans, and I mean more than what was actually in the match, then there would have been a sincere issue with the outcome to that match, in my humble opinion. What we got Shane McMahon's highlight reel. We got the signature spots. We got the coast to coast. We got him doing his best Mick Foley impersonation, diving off the top of the cage and going through a table. We got all of that. And this out of a Shane McMahon who hasn't been in a ring in forever, from a Shane McMahon who is far past his physical prime, but they've also shown Shane McMahon working out and going through these different combat classes, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, so on and so forth, and that gave you enough of an idea, that and just the love of Shane McMahon and the rhetoric and the promos, that's a match that they talked people into being interested in, because on paper there's nothing there to be interested in. The match was brutal. It needed to be. The match was, again, not a breakneck pace, but it's The Undertaker getting up there in years against Shane McMahon getting up there in years. So it didn't need to be a breakneck pace. And again, the stuff they did needed to register. I think the fact that they had Shane carried out on a stretcher, I think that spoke very highly of the match. Because now, one, it probably was a legitimate precaution because old boy just fell 2 stories through a table onto a concrete floor. But at the same time, even if that had not happened, I probably still would have carried him out on a stretcher, because he's not a wrestler. He's just been in a major fight against a multi-time world champion, the Phenom, The Undertaker, and you needed to have that sense of this is what happens to a slightly more than ordinary man when he goes in against the dead man. So I think that was very good. And I don't think the whole thumbs up on the way out, that didn't hurt anything. That was, I think that was a nice touch. And I think that was probably more to just wink at the crowd to let them know, hey, I'm going to live. I'm going to be okay, more than anything else. So what we get out of that is now the build-up, Shane McMahon has been disowned. The Undertaker's WrestleMania career continues. But Shane has been disowned. He's not going to control Monday Night Raw. And this is where we're going to come back to something I had mentioned earlier. I think this is a golden opportunity for the WWE from a creative booking standpoint, and I'm going to come back to that at the very end when we go over going forward from WrestleMania. The Rock comes out and cuts his promo. Speaking of missed opportunities and opportunities going forward, I think they've got a golden opportunity with something they can do with Shane. I think they missed an opportunity with The Rock. The Rock comes out, the Bray Wyatt and the Wyatt family come out. They do their big dueling promos bit there together, and you've got, frankly, 2 of the best talkers in the business sitting there doing this. The fact that the Wyatt family didn't have a match on the card, and that 100,000 people were holding up cell phones and flashlights and lighters and glow sticks and whatever else, the fireflies across Dallas, Texas, I think shows you how over these guys are and how criminally misused they were on this night. I think the idea of The Rock saying, we're not going to have a fight, we're not going to do this, we're going to have a match, we're going to have a WrestleMania match, and calling the referee down, I think that was tremendous. I thought that was a wonderful opportunity, unadvertised. The crowd popped wild for it. Why did you put Eric Rowan in the match and put him under in 6 seconds? I mean, unless somebody in the office has heat with King Kong Bundy and S.D. Jones that nobody knows about, I can't figure it out. I don't know why they did it. Aside from the fact that it doesn't do Eric Rowan any favors, it also, you miss the opportunity of having The Rock in a legitimate match at WrestleMania. I think if you had had him work Braun Strowman, it would have helped Strowman's credibility a great deal. I don't think I would have given them Bray Wyatt versus The Rock just yet. I think John Cena coming in and doing the run-in to fight off the Wyatt family alongside The Rock, I think that was a nice touch. I think that's probably foreshadowing for something like SummerSlam or Survivor Series when John is 100%. But I think this was your missed opportunity. People have spoken now for years on the idea of turning John Cena heel. I've never been a fan of that idea. John Cena, and this is strictly from a business standpoint, John Cena sells the vast majority of your merch. John Cena is the guy that goes out and does more Make-A-Wishes than virtually anybody else on the planet. John Cena is the face of the WWE, not just the baby face of the company, but I mean, in many ways, he's the public face of the company. If you think of a WWE superstar, you think of John Cena. So I think, from a business standpoint, I've never liked the idea of turning him heel. With that said, if you were going to turn John Cena heel, that was the time to do it. In front of 100,000 people, right after The Rock has cut a brilliant promo and doused the Wyatt family. They had the moment. I literally was sitting there watching WrestleMania and saying to the monitor that I was watching it on, this is when you turn him. This is the moment to make John Cena a heel. Because the second they had The Rock step ahead of John Cena in the ring, John Cena was behind him, that was the time to have The Rock turn around and get AA'd. That was the moment. That, if you were going to do it, that's when you needed to do it. And they didn't. So I think that, frankly, should put to rest any idea that the WWE is even entertaining the idea of John Cena as a heel. Because if you were going to pull the trigger on this, that was the moment you needed to pull the trigger, and they didn't. Last but not least, we have the World Heavyweight title. We have finally figured out a way to get a crowd to cheer Roman Reigns. Apparently it involves spearing Stephanie McMahon out of her boots. Triple H came out and delivered a damn good Triple H world title match with Roman Reigns. I don't think anybody on the planet at this point would question Roman Reigns' athleticism or his performance level. I think from strictly a performance standpoint, he is certainly world championship caliber. I think personally that Roman Reigns' promo skills, I think while they have improved, I don't think they're to the point of being the voice that carries the show from a wrestler standpoint. But I think they've learned a little bit from past mistakes. There's only so many times you can beat down the babyface before you give him the belt. And if you want Roman Reigns to be the man, then you got to give him a chance to be the man. And while they did it sort of between Survivor Series and Royal Rumble, they gave him a cup of coffee with it. I think if they need to give him now an actual prolonged run, I think you need to give him 3, 4, 5 months. Well, more than 3, probably 5 or 6 months. I think the money match is probably Roman and Brock. I think the world is going to expect the belt to go back on Brock. I see that as the money match at this point simply because Brock Lesnar just had a big win at WrestleMania. Roman Reigns just won the world title at WrestleMania. So that's probably the money match you're going to go for. I do personally believe and have for a long time that the best thing they can do to Roman Reigns is flip him heel and put him with Paul Heyman. Heyman has a history of going with the next big thing, and if he perceives that to be Roman Reigns, then it makes perfect sense for him to go with Roman Reigns and let Brock Lesnar be embraced for the babyface that the fans want him to be, which is, frankly, the same guy he is now, just without Paul Heyman, and German suplexing heels to who knows where as opposed to babyfaces. I think the other possible money match that you're looking at is, I think, possibly Dean Ambrose. But I'm very scared that they're not going to do a Dean Ambrose Roman Reigns main event anytime soon for the world title. I think they want those two guys to be brothers. I think they want them to be allies. And I don't think that they see Dean Ambrose right now in the world championship stature. I think they see him as a Rob Van Dam, not as a Chris Jericho. And what I mean by that is I think they look at him and they see the smaller, high-caliber worker, but they see the smaller, high-caliber worker that can wrestle the champion, but not necessarily be the champion. So it is what it is. I personally think Dean Ambrose is as close as you are ever going to get to another Steve Austin. So time will tell on that one. With the world title match, though, again, I think the world title match was well executed. I think it was a solid match. It wasn't a stinker by any stretch of the imagination. I think having Triple H outsmart Roman Reigns for the vast majority of the match, I think that was the right way to go, because he's not going to be the faster Triple H. He's not going to be the stronger Triple H, because he's not the Triple H of old. He is the cerebral assassin. They harped on that, and they showed it because they showed him outsmart Roman Reigns and used his experiences to his advantage multiple times throughout the match. So I thought that was brilliant. But again, I think it was the time to put Roman over. They finally found a way to get him cheered. Unfortunately, I don't think you can have him spear Stephanie every night. So I suspect by Raw later tonight, it's going to go back to the status quo. So we'll see. As far as going forward out of WrestleMania, the landscape's going to get real crowded real fast because in the not overly distant future, you've got John Cena coming back. You've got Seth Rollins on the mend. You've got Randy Orton on the mend. So basically you have three main event guys all on the mend that would beg the question, would WrestleMania's big match picture have looked the same had any of those three actually been healthy and ring-worthy at WrestleMania? So I suspect going forward, I think Randy Orton will probably be the logical choice upon his return to feud with Roman Reigns. Seth Rollins also falls into that category, although I suspect really that Seth Rollins might play second fiddle to that against Randy Orton if there's a choice to be made, and I suspect when Rollins comes back it's going to be as a babyface. So you have those three coming back. That picture is going to get really crowded really quick because it's going to be those three, but you now have Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, and Dean Ambrose in that same light. As far as the tag team titles are concerned, I think you have a brilliant opportunity. I think you have a bright future here because you have the League versus the New Day, which I think is compelling, and they've set it up now very, very well. Like I said, I think this gets you through SummerSlam. And with the women's division, it's wide open. But frankly, at WrestleMania, you solved nothing. So the issue is still there. You gave everybody a hell of a match on the biggest stage of them all, and you rechristened it as the women's division. So you accomplished that. And that was a huge accomplishment, something that needed to happen. But you answered no questions. In fact, you created more. And that's kind of exactly what you're supposed to do in professional wrestling. It's the never-ending story. The day you blow everything off is the last day your company's open. And then the thing that I think is the most interesting, the most intriguing, and frankly, I think the direction they need to go. I think it is time for someone to openly take control of NXT in a way similar to the McMahons control Raw and SmackDown. I think Shane McMahon should become the authority figure, the face, as it were, of NXT. Now, I know it's Triple H's boy from a purpose of actually operating the company. NXT is his promotion, his project, and you can see his handiwork all over it. But Triple H is also half of the authority with his wife, which makes him a top heel on the main roster. So, you can't really have him be a top heel on the main roster and the big old babyface guy on NXT, which is one of the reasons you have William Regal as a commissioner, which I think you can keep. But I think it's time to bring Shane McMahon to NXT and to actually have NXT step up and go, no, we are not simply WWE developmental. Now I'm talking from a storyline standpoint. We're not simply WWE developmental. Baron Corbin, one of our young stars, just won your Andre Memorial Battle Royal on the grandest stage of them all. Zack Ryder just walked into the Showcase of the Immortals and walked out with your Intercontinental title. These are NXT guys. These are not WWE guys. They're not on the WWE roster. They're on the NXT roster. They're our guys. And it's time that they get that kind of spotlight put on them. And I think that this is the time to take NXT from a perception of more than simply a developmental territory and make it the legitimate third brand of the WWE. It's going to serve the same role ECW did. It is developmental. But it can sincerely be a third brand with a tremendous following It already is. They just haven't said it yet. So I think the idea of having Shane McMahon go there, having Shane McMahon present, this is the next generation, this is the next evolution, this is the next step in the legacy of the WWE. He's been harping about this the entire time, the next generation, the next part of the legacy. That's what he's been harping on, and that's what the promotion's called. That's what NXT stands for. Next. NXT. They dropped the E out of it. So think about it. I think it's a tremendous opportunity. I think this is the direction they need to go with NXT, and I think really that's the next big step, because in NXT versus WWE, painting NXT as the baby faces, as the underdogs, that they're going to fight for the respect they deserve, and they're going to cement that they are the next generation, the next legacy of the WWE Universe, with Shane McMahon at the helm, I think is a tremendous idea that could make a whole lot of money, as long as they don't treat it like a certain invasion that they booked several years back. So folks, that's my thoughts on WrestleMania. Not as short as I was hoping they would be. Actually, this wound up being about the length of a normal episode of the Announcer's Booth. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope my insights at least made some sense. You're probably not going to agree with all of them, and that's A-okay. Let us know in the comments below. Share, like, subscribe, all those things you do here on the YouTubes. And don't forget to find us on social media. You'll see that on the flip after I get done talking. So, until next time, hopefully when John the Body Johnson is back with us, I'm Greg Hunter, and we'll see you on the Announcer's Booth.